Hey, Maria back with another video. It is 8:17 a.m. It is August 20th and it's Saturday morning. Happy Saturday morning, everyone. So I just wanted to get on here and kind of talk about some of the little things that are flushing through my mind. And when you wake up in the morning, sometimes if you just lay there in bed a little bit after you wake up, you might recall some of the things that were going through your mind while you're in the dream state. Um, I think it's good that we have memories. Like, I don't want to say that not all of my childhood memories were bad. I will say the bullying was ridiculous, but when I say that about my childhood memories, I do miss the music for one thing. Okay, the music was great back then. I mean, it didn't matter what kind of music it was all good. Like, my family listened to of different kinds of music, and I know that there was a lot of contemporary most of the time when I was growing up. I remember the contemporary music of the 1960s, and I absolutely loved it. Now, mind you, while I was listening to this music as a child, it was already gone, done and gone. It was like it was something of the past because I was born in 1971, and like the Beatles and Cream and all these other bands or whatever had already come out. Okay, but by the time the 80s rolled around, I started listening to different music because I would say, like, in 1985, music was good all the way up to 1985, I think. Okay, like you could go on the radio, any radio station, and I would be entertained. I would thought the music was good, lyrics were good, the instrument behind the music, creating the music, blending with the music was all good. I mean, the majority of it was good. I mean, you had those odd songs that would come on that would make you cringe and you would change the channel, but for the most part, everything was good. And then, when I got to be in high school, I remember going out to the commissary with my dad, and the commissary was on the military base, and I lived in like Lancaster. So as we would drive to the commissary, my dad would listen to this radio station. Either it was country music. I know my dad loved country music. Okay, absolutely, that was his favorite choice. Okay, and then he would also listen to K Earth 101. Right, K Earth 101 played a lot of 60s music. And I started listening to it, and it just fucking, I loved it. Like, I started just thinking, my goodness, this is so much better than what's on the radio now in 1985. And from that point on, it was like most of the time I started getting interested in even more music. But those were great memories. Like, memories, certain things bring you back into time, and some people would say that, oh, Maria, you live in the past. I will say that's not true. I mean, I'm very well aware that it's 2022, and that things have changed. I'm fully aware of that. It's just that, when I compare certain things to how things used to be, okay, and I'm going to say there's a lot of improvements, but I do recognize that that the quality of certain things to me are no longer, it's no longer there. Like, the majority of music today, I hate it. I hate today's music, and that goes across all the genres of music. It just seems like it's become I don't know, like, just pointless stuff. But this video is not really about music or whatever, but it is about memories. It is memories that I appreciate, because when you are not happy in the present moment, sometimes it's the memories that help inspire you, or it could motivate you, or soothe you, or comfort you, or give you something to hang on to, and that's positive. Okay, now I don't think that people should live in the past to the point of where they can't progress in life. Some people have fixations that have never been, that will probably never be resolved. Okay, some people get over it, but some people just have these like fixations, like, let's just say, for example, there's a couple that dated back in the 1980s, right? And this was like the love of this girl's life, or at least she thought it was, okay? And they broke up in a terrible way, and then she pines for him year after year after year after year, and like decades go by, and she still like can't quite get over this bullshit, okay? That is weird. Okay, that's living in the past. That's like mourning something that you can never retrieve, that you can never bring back into your life or whatever. It's pointless. It's like that kind of thinking, that sort of living in the past is bad, okay? But there's certain elements of the past that I refuse to give up, okay? Like like um like of course the music, okay? And just I like a lot of the older clothing pieces, and just the fact that I can compare how I felt at that time. Like I think my innocence was something that was so precious to me. Like it was just the fact that every day was new. I had a better outlook because I was too innocent to know that people had bad intentions. And I was innocent to where I always thought that when I did become aware that there was evil in the world, okay, I still at that time had a hope and a positive outlook on humanity as a whole. Okay, I kept thinking, well, they're just the exception. They're the odd birds. Okay, but the majority of people are good. And as I slowly became older and got older, I realized that this kind of sickness is in the majority of people. There's a duality in the human mind, and that's just how it is. Okay, so people have to adapt some sort of moral guideline, and some people think that moral guideline is through religion. Some people think that moral guideline shouldn't even exist because a lot of people, even as they get into adulthood, still walk around believing that people are good. Like they're overall good people. They're going to make good choices. They're not going to do something that's harmful to another human being. Oh no, their conscience would not let them do that. So they think, okay? They think that this is the majority of people, but deep down inside, it's dark. It's a very dark world and nature that belongs to men in general. So we do have things like religion in sometimes, okay? What I mean by that is like, religion can be good in some ways because it could teach you how to know the difference between right and wrong. And we have some religions that the right and wrong, what is good and what is bad, have there's nothing that defines that. You know what I mean? Like what happened here in this community was, you'll see that there was something that was very evil. The undercurrent was an evil intention because you're using it to control, manipulate, damage, and abuse person, not because you want to have a spiritual purity to stand before a higher level entity and say that I'm living a good life. Because obviously, if you are somebody who is trying to force upon your lifestyle on somebody against their will, or you're trying to do this sort of thing, you are not living in a spiritual nature. Okay? Spirituality is when you give yourself up, and your devotion cannot be forced. Like I can't force somebody to love me. You can't force you to love God. You either do or you don't. And some countries, backwards countries, they'll like force a religion upon a group of people. And this is one of the things that I like about the United States, is because it allows us to have the ability to have our free will, our choices of what religion we want. You know what I mean? There's certain things that exist in people that resonate with them because they're meant to have a special gift, and it's not like everyone else. It's different than the majority of people, and those people are considered prophets. Now, and they still exist to this day, okay? And that's a, you know, let's just keep these videos in a certain category. So I'm going to talk about that in another video. But the video today, because this is not scripted, okay? This is just my fresh thought in the morning before I get started on my daily duties, which I want to, you know, dig into some things that I'm doing at work and all this stuff. But I'm taking out a moment for clarity, I guess, you know. And so this video is about memories, and not so much religion, but it's going back into our memory bank and pulling back moments where we remember what made us happy, or what the things that did make us happy. And I think the things that made me happy growing up was, of course, number one, music. Number two, my imagination. Like, I was constantly thinking and observing people when I was younger, and I would predict what they would do, you know. And I just had this internal sense of satisfaction, because I didn't need anyone to really entertain me. Like, I could come up with stuff in my head for hours and hours and hours, or make up scenarios or storylines and just be entertained with that. Now, I will say that the situation that exists today was very similar in my life when I was younger, because it was always where in the background I had, you know, my siblings manipulating the social platform. So I would have my friends, and then all of a sudden they would like start causing shit for no apparent reason. You know what I mean? I just, or little nitpicky fights that would get started for absolutely no reason. Or just, and if it was a reason, then it was usually a reason that was like kind of petty. Like really petty when you think about it. It's like, okay, well, who cares? You know what I mean? But it was always just like, let's pick, always, you know. But throughout that time, while I was being nitpicked, while I was avoiding going to certain classes because I didn't really want to deal with shit at that time, or bullying, or being bothered, or asked questions that made me feel uncomfortable, I basically spent my time, number one, at the library. I would go to the library and just totally like read books on just weird topics, whether that be spiritual issues or philosophy, or you know, just reading about different cultures, hanging out in the library until somebody would turn me away and tell me to get out. And then I would go to the cemetery. Now, I hung out in the cemetery a lot when I was a kid, and I loved reading gravestones and just like thinking how mysterious death was, you know, and kind of intrigued because like I could feel the vibrations of certain things. And sometimes if I couldn't go to the library because, you know, kids were supposed to be in school at a certain time, and I was basically ditching school because I couldn't deal with the bullying, so I would go to the cemetery. And then if I was a little tired of going to the cemetery, then sometimes I would wander into a thrift store, which I still love to this day. Now my family, of course I'm a black person, okay, but my family was not poor, you know. And I know people always think black people had poor lives. No, we weren't poor. We weren't rich either, but we lived comfortably. I always had big Christmases and nice, you know, holidays. What I mean by that is, even though I had to spend it with bullies, I did enjoy the holidays, okay, as a kid, until I started converting to the Jehovah's Witness religion, which is like that's a story for another day. But anyway, but I did. So I did have like Christmases and stuff like that, and you know, I always had food. My dad would buy like for the 80s. Okay, we literally had like a $1,200 grocery bill, and that's huge. That's huge for back in the 80s. Okay, because like obviously my family liked to eat. They love to fucking eat. Okay. And so, so I didn't grow up poor. Okay, I was comfortable. I had a comfortable upbringing. But I remember those things. So I would go to the thrift store and find like weird albums, like albums that were old, that I found intriguing, clothing pieces that were old that I found intriguing, books that I found that were intriguing. And I just became like, I don't know, comfortable with my little eclectic hobbies. And to this day, they bring me extreme joy. I don't have to go to the thrift store. I don't. And I've been introduced to like higher level thrift stores throughout the years, because people have told me, okay, you like thrift stores, well, go ahead and check this one out, and I'm like, okay, but you do find better stuff, okay? But the thing is, it's like, I'm not really into, or I don't have to have expensive items, okay? I'm a person who feels energy, and I realized that when I was younger, that when I was ditching school and couldn't go to the library, or I couldn't be in the cemetery because I'm getting a little burnout on that one, or whatever, or I was at the thrift store, I would find, I would go to the thrift store, or I would also go into abandoned homes and buildings, because I realized I could feel energy. I could feel energy, I could feel sadness, I could pick up on the residual things that were there, and alongside my interest in spirituality, I started understanding, okay, this is kind of like I could feel things. I'm aware of things. So to this day, I do have weird hobbies, okay? But I would say I developed into this person based off of the circumstances that I was in, And I don't think it's anything really to be ashamed of. I am who I am. I'm not like I'm just somebody who was always running from being bullied, and I didn't really realize it at the time. I just kept thinking, man, people are fucking my shit up. Like every time I'm trying to do something, people are like causing me problems. I didn't understand what was going on. Okay. But as I got older, I started reading and understanding. Like I thought I had coined the term targeted individual. I did. But see, my definition of the targeted individual was a little different than what is being publicized here. I just thought, like, I didn't know that I was being stalked for years and years and years and years. Okay, at least I didn't until, like, I would say the last few years. Okay, then it hit me. But like I remember back in like 2008, 2009, I started thinking in the back of my mind, like, this is this repeated pattern, and I kept thinking, maybe it's because I'm weird to people. I kept thinking maybe people think I'm weird, to the point of where, like, not weird, but like just not weird. Okay, I don't want to use the word weird. I kept thinking maybe I'm dealing with because I am different. Okay, I am different. Okay, but I kept thinking maybe is there something about my personality that people didn't like in general? Okay, I didn't realize that it was my family that was like coming after me, trying to indoctrinate me, trying to make me think. I remember being afraid to talk about certain things, with people, because I always felt like I was going to deal with backlash or something, because my family was always monitoring my behavior, which they had no right to. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't want to go into my family either. This is not the point of the video. The video is like how I deal with moments of depression, and what helps me and heals me and gives me a sense of satisfaction, or gives me the calm back in my life. And those things, I enjoy those sort of things. I like, strange. I have strange hobbies. I have very strange hobbies. Which I miss getting back into. And I know there's a lot of what do you call it, cemeteries out here in Bakersfield. I do remember going out to a cemetery with a lady that I had met online back in the early 2000s. And we went to the cemetery at night. Now, I know people are thinking, oh, you're weird. No, I wanted to feel the vibration. I wanted to feel it. Now, I think a lot of people think that there's a lot of spiritual activity in graveyards, and I'm going to tell you that's not really true. Okay, I think some of the older graves are interesting because you kind of feel like this sense of mystery of like the time periods of a time period that's long gone. Okay, like this bygone era, that you know, but it's more of a sense of wonder, or maybe a form of nostalgia, maybe, but it's not really like a spiritual presence. I think the cemetery is interesting because it's there's some graves have been out there for like hundreds of years. It's like it's an interesting thing that there could be like this collection of family plots that they want it all to be together. So it's interesting, I guess, maybe from his historical point of view, but not one of really a mystical view. But I would say abandoned buildings are. I can feel abandoned buildings. I can feel abandoned homes. Like I can feel the people and the life that they lived and what they thought, and their yeah, I do. It's a lasting impression that exists within the walls of certain buildings, especially if there was a lot of high tension and emotions and feelings. Some homes that I've been in have been very dark, and what I mean by that, yeah, the sun's shining through the window and everything, but there's something very twisted and morbid and odd, and I know that I've been in homes where I realized, oh, okay, this person must have been like a child molester or something bizarre like that. I have that ability, and there's a lot of people who do. But anyway, that's a story for another time. But it's those memories that I look back on, and I just kind of like, it brightens my day. Do I think that, I don't think that, living or pulling elements from your past is a bad thing. It is a bad thing if you refuse to move on from certain things and don't recognize, hey, we're living in today. This is today. This is 2022. Unfortunately, the music is not good. In my mind, at least it's not. And that's subjective, okay? My opinion is I hate it. I don't like it. It's very rare. Some of the alternative music, though, I will say is good. But that doesn't get any radio play. It's not really popular among, like, the mainstream crowds. And they're not going to be, like, all glamorous and doing all this other stuff. But I would say this world that we live in, maybe as an adult, and maybe if I was an adult in the 1970s and the 80s, I would have, I would still probably have this view of the world. Okay, but see what it is that I have come to realize that the world is a wicked place. It was wicked when I was growing up, and it was wicked before I even existed. It's always been wicked, okay? But when you're young, you start off believing that people are good, and they're really, and you start thinking in your world, and in your especially in your, I call it the Technicolor world, like, because I remember there was a lot of indoctrination of this positive world image on television. It's like, and you think, okay, well, yeah, I know I have these bullying siblings, and the kids at school are fucking nightmares, right? But somehow in this, like, little box is television. You're watching shit like the Brady Bunch. You're watching shit like the Little House on the Prairie. You're looking at, and don't get me wrong, I understood that I was not in a white family, okay? But I still recognize the fact that the Brady Bunch had a mother, and they had a father, they had kids, everyone loved each other, which made me thinking, okay, well, what the fuck is going on in my fucking family, right? It's bullshit, right? I kept thinking, okay, here's the Brady Bunch setup, right? The Brady Bunch, that's a step family. Okay, now that's nothing nowadays, okay? Because, like, people nowadays, they've been married once, twice, maybe 3 times over, But, like, back in the day, the Brady Bunch was huge because they were talking about a family that was it was questionable exactly how Mike and Carol got together at the time. But the story was supposed to be where they were both widowed. But you notice that Carol in that show, nobody really goes into what happened to her spouse. Okay, like we all know that Mike Mike's wife, she passed away, right, in the Brady Bunch first few episodes. But then, Carol, what happened? What the hell is up with Carol? So it's always been questionable as to whether Carol was a divorcee. Okay, so being somebody divorced back in the 1970s and the 60s was kind of like, oh, like she's kind of like, we question her. She couldn't hack it. In back of their mind, it was like she was somehow failed as a person because she was a divorced person. It could have very well been that he was beating the shit out of her every fucking goddamn day, and she decided to leave. But somehow or another, she's a bad person because she got a divorce. Anyway, but what I thought about in that family though was the fact that they're all step families, right? Stepmothers, stepchildren, but yet they're so happy. Carol loves those boys just as much as she loves those girls. And it was also ushy gushy, lovey lovey, everyone's love love love. And I'm like, there is zero love in my fucking family. You know what I mean? But then I started realizing when I would go to probably my fake perp friends back in my grade school years. I don't know if those fucking friendships were arranged or not. You question things, but whatever. But I'd go to my friend's house and I would realize that there was a lot of yelling, back and forth, and people, a lot of disrespecting, people talking back to their parents. And so I start realizing, wait a second, nobody has what this fucking Brady Bunch bullshit has. Okay, but I will say that this sort of indoctrination that we had as kids does make us feel like failures because we're holding ourselves up to the standard, of like shit that we're never going to be able to obtain ever in a million years. You know what I mean? I think in some ways television and this sort of like overly happy stuff that goes on is very damaging to children, because they start developing, this discontentment in their lives, and it's unnecessary, because you're trying to aim for something that's impossible. You're never going to have what the fucking Brady Bunch have. A lot of families fucking like hold so much resentment and just like utter disdain for each family member. They can't stand them. They tolerate them because they feel like they need them, or they rely on them, or they're overly dependent on them, or whatever. But families can be very, very dysfunctional, But the memory of it, though, and even though, the Brady Bunch was full of shit, I do remember watching their episodes. I've watched every episode of the Brady Bunch. I'm probably the queen of Brady trivia. Okay? Seriously. Seriously. I know more about the Brady Bunch. I know about their spinoffs. And it is. It's super cheesy. It's horrible. It's cringeworthy. It's like the worst garbage ever when you really think about it as an adult, okay? But it was this, all I remember was everything was ideal back then. I call it Technicolor because still back then, like the screenshots and the filming of TV shows, specials, whatever, were always really bright. Like the colors, I just remember, were like extremely bright, and it was just this being fed bullshit, I mean, we live in a world that is filled with disappointments, doesn't end happily, not everybody gets what they want at the end of the day. It's, whereas, in those shows, it was like that. But I'm going through memories in my mind, and I'm smiling as I'm thinking about it because it's like, I don't know, it brings back a sense of happiness, clarity, um, I know there's a lot of people who think that, when you get older, you're supposed to stop being who you are. And that a lot of that comes from bullying. A lot of that comes from social pressure who are too afraid themselves to do something. First of all, there is nothing wrong with a woman who's, I'm going to even go even older than me, okay? I've seen a lot of these little older women, especially like in the last few months. I saw quite a few old women with purple and pink hair. Now, obviously, that's not my thing, okay? But I feel that people have a need to express something within themselves, and they should be able to do this. And thank goodness we live in the United States of America. If this is what they want to do, then let them do it. You know what I mean? We only have that I can verify, that I know for sure, because if I punch myself or pinch myself, I'm feeling pain. I'm fully aware that this is my one and only life that I have. You know what I mean? Now, when we die, I probably could drift somewhere else, okay? I might have lived before. I have no idea how all that works behind the scenes, okay? I have a hunch, you know what I mean? But I am not somebody who knows all the mysteries of life. And I get a little tired of people who try to indoctrinate me with their bullshit, acting as if they have the authority of it. That's why we have all these goddamn religions, because a lot of people don't fucking know. They can't fucking figure it out. And there's a lot of debate, and it gets very heated and argumentative when people have their opinions. And they start bringing up what they think and all this other shit, okay? But my life is precious. Okay, each person, even though we are vile human beings, and why I say vile is because we can obviously see that evil is a part of the human nature. It is. Okay? So be on the lookout and watch your back. But we do have a life, and it's up to each individual to make the best of it. Whatever that might be. Okay? And my life is where I don't tread on other people. You know, and I don't want to make people miss out in any part of their life. You know, and maybe I think sometimes when you get older, you even want to go even more into enjoying precious moments and creating precious moments for yourself. And sometimes that does mean stepping out of those boxes. You know what I mean? Sometimes it does. I mean, this is your one-shot deal. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do out of your life? Or if you have always been a woman who's gone to your church picnics and potlucks, and you've worn your hair in that bowl shape, you know what I'm talking about, or that I call it the football helmet helmet haircut, or whatever it is. A lot of older women decide that they choose to no longer care for themselves, and they feel this obligation to drop and change who they are so they can fit in more with their friends who would never appreciate their true nature anyway, because they want to dictate what this person does. You have to evolve and make that decision to evolve on your own. And there's going to be people who are going to put up blocks and obstacles because people are afraid of other people changing or moving into what it is that they need. Because when they do that, it changes the dynamics of things. But you have to understand, love, true love, is when you allow people to move on with their life when they need to. You see what I'm saying? Like I said, I love my son. I love my son. I love my son more than anyone on this earth, okay? But, like I said, if, let's just say, for example, he wins $1 million or whatever, and then he meets this girl and they get married and whatever, then I have to be happy for him. You know what I mean? I have to be happy for him. There's some people, they stick to their moms all the time, and then it's like, this is just an example. They stick to their moms all the time, and it's like, some mothers, I'm giving you this as an example, some mothers prevent their kids from living their life. They do this, okay? Maybe because they feel like they're relying on them for emotional, because they don't want to be alone. Because I know some people who've they know their children have families, right? And they don't really need to have or bother them right now, but they're lonely, okay? So they're constantly pulling the husband away from the wife and the family. And there's nothing wrong with spending time with, grandma and all these other things. But sometimes people will take, when a man and a wife have their own life together, or they're living, or whatever, whether they're living with their spouses, or they're doing something as an adult and they're living their life or whatever, you got to let people live their life. You know what I mean? You have to. And you have to give people their freedom and space, and you have to be an independent person, in my mind. Like, you know, you can't just sit there and like bully people and expect people to give up their life for you, you know. But when I was younger, you know, my memory of uh, the precious times, you know, and some of the precious times were uh, watching little cartoons, you know, little cartoons where, you know, the little characters are really cute, and then they'll have like little sad storylines to where like the mom dies, and then it's just like it was just like heartbreaking. I knew that I had compassion even as a child. Like I knew, I felt sorry, and I got bullied for crying. Like there was this like this old Rankin Bass um, Rankin Bass uh, Christmas special. Rankin Bass was really big on like claymation type of cartoons, animation back in the 1960s and 70s. Okay, and I don't know if you're my age or older, you probably remember those Rankin Bass cartoons or claymation features. But like there was this thing where there was like Nestor the long-eared donkey where his mom dies, and it was just like really sad. I just remember crying, and I cried at this cartoon called Snoopy Come Home because it was heartbreaking. Now as an adult, I look back and I think, yeah, it's just kind of silly, but what it showed is that I had empathy, like I had feelings, like I, you know, and of course, and I had feelings for other people. Like I felt sorry and pity for people. Like when I was younger, I saw a homeless person and I couldn't stop thinking about it for days. You know what I mean? But then again, people would see that in me and they would think that I was weak, and then they would fucking bully me even more. It's like, God, you know. But I have to laugh at it now because it's like, man, you know, I was a spiritual person all my life, you know, and I'll be damned if somebody's going to turn me away from that. It's in me to be that way, you know. But anyway, this is not a complaint video. It's more like a, let me just kind of talk and get my thoughts out, and before I start my day, because I do want to get ahead of a couple of things at work, and um, I have my own schedule pace. It's just funny how I juggle time, and I do think time is important. It is precious, and sometimes memories flow through. I'm going to just say this really quick before I wrap up this video. Memories flow through my mind, and that does come out in my expression, how I express myself. Like, you know, I don't really have time to listen to the radio before I go to work now. Okay. I guess I could turn it on sometimes, but there has been times in the past where I did. Like, um, I remember getting ready for work, and then like I would turn on the radio, and then I would hear like something from the 80s, and I'll swear I'll go into my closet. I'm like, yeah, I would wear something that reminds me of the 80s, and it did. And you know what? It would fill me the entire day. It's a part of. I think that this sort of enrichment and that it gives me uh, gives me great joy, you know, and I think that a lot of women feel pressured to not feel that sort of joy at the expense of people are imposing that on her for reasons that are unfair and that are completely selfish. Completely selfish. You know, if a woman feels as though she needs to express herself, then she certainly should. You know, and but I think a lot of times when you're dealing with trafficking and targeting, there's an attempt to prevent prevent you from having a social life. So they want to bully you and tell you not to look a certain way because they might envy it themselves. You know, like I don't think you know, you should wear clothes that are nice or whatever. You should just wear sweats and jeans because it might, number one, make them feel bad, or they might be relying on you because they don't want you to get married or something like that. So they, you know, it's just weird shit, you know, that you're getting picked on out of all the other people who are nice looking and wearing nice clothes or whatever. So but that's one thing. But it's an example. What I was trying to say is an example. I'm getting off the subject because it's not a scripted conversation, but it's an example of uh, bringing joy into your everyday life. You know, it's a small thing. You know, it's a very small thing, but it gives me a sense of happiness. You know, now I don't think that there's certain things that you can't wear at work that would be considered outlandish. You know what I mean? But I keep it to where I don't feel as though like I don't wear um, I don't know. I don't wear provocative clothes. I know I don't. Like I don't go around showing my cleavage and stuff like that. I just try to, you know, I just like whatever it is I wear. You know, I think it's decent. You know, now I think that there are some clothes that could be considered outlandish, like mini skirts, micro mini skirts, and stuff. But I don't really wear those anyway these days. But um, you know, just certain things that we find in our life that bring us happiness in a world where there really is no love, where people bully, their natural instinct is to bully each other. Um, uh, we live in a very dark world, and it's up to the individual to bring light in their life. You know, because you can't. Obviously, I would tell you, don't expect other people to give you, you know, light or happiness because people have a very selfish nature. And when the shit hits the fan, people will show you that what I'm telling you, just like I say, my allegiance is to myself. I'm just somebody who's bold enough to say it. But if the shit hits the fan, you'll see how everyone else feels deep down inside feels the same way because they will get cutthroat and they will fucking roll over you if they want to. Just like the employers that were willing to fucking when they realized that I was onto their bullshit. Oh, then they fucking rolled on everyone. You know what I mean? It was like they were trying to protect themselves at the end of the day. So it's like I will tell you, and just like when certain you know some certain partners in crime will do certain things. Like you'll see in a lot of situations where people get arrested because they killed somebody, right? And then their allegiance was supposed to be with their little partner in crime. But when they're starting to put the pressure on them and they're interrogating on them, guess what? The other partner turns in the other person because they're fucking care about their survival. You know what I mean? So I understand it. People can get very cutthroat. People are very selfish. They don't care about anybody in this world. So care about yourself. Care about yourself. You should love yourself. Nobody gives a fuck about you. The reason why they want to make you fat is because they don't like you looking like how they want you, how they wish they could look. That's the reality. So, you know, we live in a very bullying culture, a culture that doesn't abide by laws, who are ignorant of the law. And if they ignore the law, once they learn it, then like I said, you can deem these people as evil. People bully each other, and that doesn't stop just because they're blood related to you. You could probably expect them to bully you even more because now they feel in their sick, twisted mind because they don't adhere to the law that they feel entitled to bully you. Okay, not all families care about each other, and this is not me. I don't want to bring up this issue, go on and on about it, but this is just talking in general. You know. If you don't love yourself, I guarantee you, nobody else will. You know what I mean? And I'm going to tell you, even though you might love yourself, you still may not have that. Because people become your friend for fake reasons. Okay? Some people get married to you for fake reasons. You know, there are a lot of people who are only after you for your money. And when you are no longer useful to them, then they're willing to throw you in the trash. you know, because when it all comes down to it, you know, it becomes a matter of, so why not have that allegiance to yourself? It makes total sense to, you know what I mean? And I know from my past experience, just knowing and observing people and how much bullshit comes out of their mouth, you gotta, if you don't care about yourself, then I really do pity you, you know? So anyway, those are my memories. My memories are sitting in the sunlight, you know, walking to school. There's times I get up and I walk to work. Not because I live like right by my work, okay? But I walk to work sometimes because um, I want to generate that feeling of when I was younger, you know? Just because it gives me that sense of wonder that I need to get me through the day. So I can generate in my mind, okay, Maria, you got your lunchbox in your hand and you got the sun behind you. Doesn't it feel like you're in third grade? And it makes you feel like a child again. And that gives you something, a great feeling for the rest of the day. And it's simple. And it's nobody's goddamn business. And I'll be damned if somebody's going to cheat me out of that. It's a simple feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. You know what I mean? And it doesn't cost you anything. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. I will be back with another video sometime later. I've got a lot of things to do. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.